one of these? Yep. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Do a quick introduction again. My name is David Humpherys with Adobe. My background is I've spent about 7 years with a combination of Adobe and a company that Adobe bought a number of years ago called Omniture, creating integrated solutions between Adobe products and third-party applications and systems. So we're building integrated solutions by combining data in our systems and inside of partner applications. So many of you probably already know Adobe as the company that makes Photoshop. Reminder, Adobe as a company doesn't make the cool images that you see like these here, but we make the tools that allow people to be creative. So tools that allow people to create digital content, sort of express themselves through the creation of content. Probably most of you are familiar with the Adobe Creative Cloud. It includes applications like Photoshop, Illustrator, Lightroom, Premiere. These are all applications that let people create digital content. And what's significant is when we're talking today about marketing, Adobe's goal, what we're trying to do at Adobe is to sell a Creative Cloud subscription to our customers. A few years ago, Adobe started taking products that it used to sell over the shelf, combine them into a single cloud service offering. So today, when you buy Photoshop, you actually buy a Creative Cloud subscription, and you get all of the applications at once, and you pay a monthly subscription fee rather than licensing a copy of the software to own and put on your desktop. Okay? What many of you probably don't know is that Adobe also has a large business unit that focuses on marketing. So in addition to being a company that does itself a lot of marketing to consumers to sell our own products, we also create applications and sell those to enterprise companies that want to do marketing themselves. And we help those companies to optimize their marketing. So we sell tools like analytics tools, tools that allow marketers to organize and execute campaigns, create digital experiences for their customers, do everything that a marketer needs to do in order to more effectively communicate their message to their consumers. Okay, so that'll be the other perspective. And as a company, we oftentimes lean on our own marketing organization internally to understand the needs of our customers better when we're selling marketing solutions to our customers. Okay, so I want to start off here with a little bit of a history here, real quick history lesson, just to sort of bring us up to modern day and marketing and data and the way that we think about data today. So if you look back here prior to the digital age, in fact, you go back about a century, you recall that it was fairly transformative when marketers were able to speak with one voice loudly to a very large group of consumers. So mass media brought the ability to really scale and to deliver a message to lots of people through television, through broadcast radio, through means that would convey a message to everyone. And that was pretty transformative at the time. It was very important. What tended to happen over the decades is that marketers became very reliant on that mechanism or that mode of speaking to consumers. It was a way to really get your message across. This broadcast medium, this mechanism gave people a very loud voice, and that was nice. The problem was that, or oftentimes what the problem is that that voice is the same for everybody. So it gave you a loud voice, but that wasn't exactly what everybody wanted to hear. And when I say that the sound wasn't pleasing to everybody, that's to say that the message that marketer is giving to the consumer is not always resonating. It's not always the thing that each person wants to hear. So when you think about marketing, what the purpose of marketing is, regardless of what organization you are, whether you're for profit or nonprofit or other sort of business, marketing has this thing in common. That is that marketers are trying to move consumers, move somebody towards a goal. It's a series of messages, usually not a one-time thing, but a series of dialogue or steps that you go through to try to influence or move somebody from one end of, sort of wherever they are today to wherever you want them to be, whether that's subscribing to a product or purchasing a product from you, whatever your goal is. You're trying to move consumers, and you're trying to move a lot of them towards that goal. And again, with that broadcast medium, it's a little bit like the Wooden Labyrinth. I don't know if anybody in here ever grew up with the Wooden Labyrinth. They make a version of this now you can get on your phone or tablet, but the Wooden Labyrinth is a bit like this broadcast medium. One move that you make with the Wooden Labyrinth applies to the entire board. So when you sort of move the board, you're affecting every piece on the board. And that's sort of like broadcast media, because when you tell a message, it's the same message to everybody. And it might be the right move for some people, it might not be the right move for others, but everybody's going to sort of move that direction that you're sort of going. And you don't have a lot of control in that mechanism to communicate individually with one of those pieces, one of those consumers on the board. So it's effective in many ways. If even today, broadcast mediums are great for creating awareness and getting sort of a general purpose message out. But when you want to isolate somebody, when you really want to get somebody to move deeper down into the funnel and really make an influence on a one-to-one basis, that broadcast medium just isn't quite the right way to do it. So what did this mean, again, going back a few decades, what did this mean for media buying? Well, sort of left you the choice. If you wanted to tell a message to somebody, if you wanted to run your promotions, your advertising, you sort of had to make a decision. Am I going to present my message on one program or another? So sort of faced with the decision. Alfred MacGyver, if you were looking at the data that was available for television programs, and in this case we're looking at, I think, 1989, this sort of data was available to help make a decision. So Nielsen ratings has been around for decades, providing this sort of information to help people identify what is my audience. When I run my marketing, though, I'm basically, again, running that same message on a program and hoping that the audience, I'm trying to match the audience of the program that I'm buying with the audience that I think is the audience that I want. And so information would be available like the number of viewers that watch a particular program, what percentage of overall viewing that represented, what sort of share of audience that represented. And as a marketer, I'd make a decision what program to run my message on. That was sort of the level of detail or information that I had. It's not a lot of data there in that itself, but it was important for helping people to understand where they wanted to run their message. And sort of the other piece that went along with that was with each of those programs, you could understand through surveys and through published ratings what the age and gender categories were of that particular program. So if I was going to run a message, I had to decide, okay, for my product or for whatever it is that I'm promoting, I'm targeting females between the age of 30 and 45, for example. And you would know which shows over-indexed for that category so you could reach more of that audience. But really, age and gender, those are just sort of proxies for other things that we think that we understand about somebody that's in that stage of life. There's something deeper, something behavioral or interest-based that makes them more likely to be a consumer of my product. And this is just sort of a way to try to get a little more direction or get a little more specific to the person that I'm trying to reach. But that essentially represented the consumer. In a lot of ways, even today, when you run broadcast media, that's about the level that you're looking at. Your audience is at that level of age and gender. So let's transition now. some pretty incredible things have happened over the last 2 decades. This here, meet the digital consumer. So this was a photo that a colleague of mine at Adobe took one day. He came home from work, walked into his home, and this was his daughter he saw sitting on the floor. This was not a staged photo, by the way. He literally just walked in, and there she was on the floor. She's got 2 phones in her hand, and she's watching a program there on her laptop. So this is very different from the way that people have consumed media for decades. And this is not very uncommon today. I don't know how many of you yourselves, if I were to ask you how many devices do you own yourself, or how many devices are in your home, and you add up the number of phones and tablets and media streaming devices and different connected devices, you start to add up into the probably into the teens in terms of the number of devices that you have in your home nowadays. And all of these devices are used to deliver media and to deliver these messages to people. So very different from the model before. Today's consumers interact through personal devices. More and more devices all the time that are connected that deliver some kind of experience. Here you see Xbox, for example. My son plays Xbox quite a bit, just loves it. He's in front of it, but it's sort of how he consumes a lot of his media. Fitbits, wearable devices, different technologies that now give us information and measure things about what we're doing in our activity. Tablets and phones, these all become an integral part of the way that we live. And what's significant about that is that each of these items now is becoming personalized for the individual person that is consuming that device. So whereas in the past, data that would be available for me was available on a household basis. So when surveys were done, sort of sampled data. If you're looking at like television ratings, this was sampled data at a household level. Now we're talking about individual level, I own this device, personal level media consumption. And all of this activity that's going on, all the things that we do as we're interacting with these devices means more and more quantities of data, more personal data, larger quantities of data, data that was never available prior to the digital age. And that's really what's been transformative about marketing here in recent history. It's just the amounts of data and the quality of that data that's available to understand our consumers with. So what does that data look like in a marketing context? So when we work with partners, when we look at marketing data and we integrate marketing data between Adobe systems and other third-party systems, these are the kinds of things that we're looking at. These are the sort of things that matter to our customers. There's a real-time stream of events. It's always happening, always going on, day after day, as interactions are happening, experiences are happening between a marketing organization and their consumers. There's sort of these steps that are significant. On the marketer side, you have the organization of marketing strategy, building campaigns, hiring agencies to design creative for you and to organize campaigns. And all of those things sort of generate or create the messaging that you're going to deliver. And then there's this sort of intersection between the organization and the consumer. As the marketing organization runs its campaigns, you're running television, radio, and print still, but now you're also doing personalized experiences on these mobile devices and tablets and media streaming devices, IP-connected devices. And you have these interactions, impressions of display ads. You've got your customers doing search queries, looking for things on the web, visiting your site, downloading your mobile app, maybe making a purchase on their mobile phone. You have the ability to address individual consumers now, whereas in the past you sort of had these mass media outlets. Now you can literally, through the association of an email address with a person, now you can deliver a personalized message to somebody and measure the interaction, whether they opened that email, whether they clicked through, and what ultimately they purchased or what they did. And so that stream of events is always going on between the marketer and each consumer. And it's going on in a way that is measurable and can give the marketer better information about their relationship with each and every consumer. So some of the other data types that are significant, those events are sort of the backbone of data between these two parties. Other things are that we think of are these data entities, things like the customer, of course, is extremely important. The content that we're using to communicate, ads that we deliver, organized into campaigns, we sell products, the consumer has devices. All these entities, these data entities are significant and things that we think about recording and keeping as part of our data set. And then all of that data is enriched with metadata. Each of these entities has additional descriptive data about what their types are in ways that allow you to segment and to break down and to understand, what data items are actually influencing or making an impact on the consumer. So let's talk about how Adobe is using that data now and how we're letting our marketing customers use that data. And first of all, a business to consumer experience personalization. So Adobe is using big data to speak to customers individually and at scale. So that's sort of the trick, is how do you do personalized one-to-one marketing sometimes to millions of people if you're a large organization. And how do you sort of speak to them personally while not being overrun with costs that make it impossible to address every one of your prospects and customers. The trick really to that is segmentation. So segmentation is certainly something that's been around for a very long time in marketing, but what happens today with the data that's available is you have the ability to be much more precise in your segments, and you have the ability to create segments that are as large or small as your need is as an organization, and depending on how much data you have, in order to create an audience that is going to be fairly specific and something that you can address with a particular message. In our case, here we're not going too deep on our segmentation. What we're doing with the Creative Cloud is we're looking at 5 different categories of customers. Sorry, what we're doing on Adobe.com is we're looking at 5 different segments of customers. And we identify, when somebody comes to Adobe.com, we try to identify which of these 5 segments they fall into. And you'll see here, these are some of the types of data that we use to do that. We look at pages that they visited, pages, give you a pretty good sense of what somebody is interested. If you see them go to a portion of our site, click into a portion of our site, that can be very indicative of what they're trying to find. We look well beyond that. We look at search ads that they've clicked on. Search ads are great at indicating intent, particularly they're consumer driven. So when somebody puts an actual query into a search engine, it's very indicative of what they're interested in. Emails, so we use the information from some of our email campaigns to determine which segment people are in. Social posts clicked, that's important, especially to our segmentation for education. Display ads that were shown to people. Third-party data. Third-party data is becoming a very big part of the marketing data set. Third-party data is data that's created, sort of combined or assembled by third parties and is sold in exchanges, data exchanges and marketplaces. So I can go out and buy data that has been sort of cultivated based on a number of these individual events, historical events with individual consumers that have been sort of rolled up. So if somebody shows that they're frequently searching on travel or purchasing travel products, then they end up in a travel segment. It might be travel segment to Europe, for example. Those types of interests, characteristics, attributes, those things are sort of bundled up and sold on the data marketplace. CRM data, lookalike model. We use all these tools to put somebody into one of these categories And once we identify which interest group or what category somebody falls in, then we create a different experience on our site using another one of our products, Experience Manager, to deliver a different message and different content that's been created for that particular type of person. So if you're looking for items that would indicate you're interested in the document cloud, then you have content about that. If you're an enterprise marketer coming to Adobe.com, it's a very different experience. You're looking for something very different from somebody that's looking for sort of the photography types of tools. So this creates a different experience for each one of these segments when they arrive at the site versus having a single message, a single static page that would be targeted to everybody. So this is what we call Adobe.com lobby personalization. And some of the results of doing this, of creating a personalized message, we found that, for example, our marketing inquiries have gone up 21%. Again, because the messaging is more relevant to the right folks, they find what they're looking for. That increases their interest in and their inquiry into the company about our products and solutions. Acrobat conversions up 4%. Even 4% doesn't sound like a lot necessarily, but when it comes to conversions and on a product that is fairly large scale, 4% is quite significant. The one that's most interesting, though, of all here, out of what we've done here, is Illustrator conversions. You see up 99%. What this is we offer a 30-day trial on Adobe Creative Cloud products. And so when somebody downloads Illustrator, when you log into the product, when you go into the product, you get a customized set of content for you to help you learn the product. We find that the more successful people are at opening the product and using it and getting value out of it, the more likely they are to convert. And so we have this in-product experience for people that gives them some tutorials, teaches them how to go through and use the product. In this case, you see it's sort of customized to the person. When they did the download, they filled out some information about themselves, and so it's a personalized experience based on which of those different segments they were in, and just doing that alone caused the number of conversions of people who did a download trial of Illustrator to people who converted doubled, okay, which is enormous. So that's the kind of impact that personalization can have. And personalization can happen in experiences on your site. Personalization can happen inside of ads that you show somebody out across the web. It can be in your emails. It can be more and more, it can be in places where it hasn't been before. Addressable television, for example, is coming already. There are companies that are offering individual one-to-one advertisements to you when you're watching on your traditional cable or satellite box. So you might find that when you're just watching your DirecTV now and an ad comes on, it might literally be something personalized to you. You should also comment, and I'll mention in just a minute again, the importance of privacy. Usually when marketers are addressing you, in most contexts, they usually don't know who you are. All they know is sort of this anonymous profile, anonymous behavior about somebody which has been detached from any identifiable information, which is important for marketers because the relationship that they have with consumers should be one of trust. And so using somebody's personal information or out of context or without their permission is something that's potentially a problem. So on the B2B side, again, Adobe is selling marketing solutions to enterprise companies. Here we've got a fairly rich and complex set of data that we use to target sales of our enterprise software tools. And whereas in the previous example, you were looking at data for a particular individual, anonymous individual, what you see here is data from data sources about an entity, about a company. And so a little different context, but similar type of idea. It's a little more multifaceted when we're talking about a business customer, but you'll see we're collecting data from sources both for sale and that we have personal interactions with, and going through the sort of same exercise where we're identifying what product each of those companies is most likely to be interested in. What's going to be their sort of next action? What's the next thing that they're going to need based on what they have today, based on everything that we know about their business? And we sort of take all that information and funnel that into an algorithm that we use to segment and market to those different accounts. Here's just, for example, the match rate, taking those data sources and applying them to a target account list. You see we have 240,000 target business accounts, and across all those sources, some varying degrees of match rate. Well, what this produces in the end is a much better sense or much better idea on account by account basis what each of those companies is interested in. And it makes a difference in the bottom line. Again, the way we're doing with consumers on our site, we're also developing here for our enterprise software sales. We're creating different experiences depending on which of those solutions we think that company is interested in, and targeting solutions to those accounts. Okay, so real quickly, before we take some questions, challenges of big data marketing. Well, one of the challenges is data quantity. As I mentioned, with all these connected devices and individual consumers, particularly in B2C, there's just lots and lots of data to deal with. And that data can become overwhelming. It can get very messy. It can cause more confusion than it causes clarity if the data is not treated in a proficient way. So quantity is certainly related to problem number 2, which is data quality. When there's so much data to deal with and you're sort of trying to see through all the noise, quality becomes especially important. And so cleansing data, making sure that your data is accurate, things that will happen frequently with marketing data is across an organization that has so many different people touching different aspects of marketing. Different people will be entering information inside different information systems like ad servers and email delivery systems and site content, to where you have different names throughout all of your data systems for the same campaign. And at the end of the day, if you can't organize information in the right way, if you can't identify, for example, if it's the same consumer that you're speaking of in one context and another, you have a sort of fragmented perspective of who that consumer is. Or if it's a campaign you're trying to calculate an ROI on, if data about your campaign is spread across 5 different campaign entities and different information systems, you're not going to calculate an accurate ROI. So it's extremely important for accuracy purposes to ensure that the data is pretty clean. As I mentioned, third big issue for marketers is privacy. Privacy is extremely important in this context because marketers need a relationship of trust with their consumers. There are expectations that consumers have about privacy. So it's possible to have too much of a good thing sometimes when it comes to data, when it comes to what you can do. You could personalize your messages to somebody, to an extreme degree in some cases, and sometimes people will find that very creepy. They'll go to a site, see a product, and then I'm sure many of you have experienced this already. Then you'll find that product sort of following you around for the next few days. Everywhere you go, there's an ad for that product, and somebody's calling you by name. It can cross the boundaries of what consumers expect when they develop a relationship with you, when they're reading your emails, when they're visiting your site or downloading your app. You might know more information about them. That doesn't mean that you should necessarily over-personalize and do too much with that data. And the big thing about privacy for marketers is there needs to be transparency and choice. Consumer needs to know what they're providing, how you're going to use their data, and if they don't want you to use it that way, they need to have the choice. They need to be able to opt out. They need to be able to say no, don't personalize your stuff to me. Just treat me completely anonymously. So those are issues that are still, the industry is still sort of struggling with and working on. So a few solutions then, sort of summarizing things that marketers need to keep in mind, particularly as they're thinking about a data strategy and what they're going to do with data. What helps, we've found at Adobe, is to abstract data from applications and use cases. That means if I'm integrating data from external systems, for example, keep that separate from its usage. What happens is when you integrate data for a specific purpose, it tends to be organized in a way, it sits in a data schema, or it's done in a way that usually is pretty nuanced and particular to a usage. Whereas if data is abstracted, then it can be more usable for a lot of different purposes. So combine data in a flexible environment. This is, again, very, very important to be able to transform data when you're bringing data together from a lot of different information systems. If you don't have the flexibility of transforming, changing the relationships between data, being able to move data, change names, do things with it, then you're limited in how well you can have an overall view of your data set. Establish a data model with consistency across data sources. That is to say, if I'm using, and many companies do this, if I'm using, for example, 5 different ad servers across my business, and each one of them has its own data schema, or it has some differences in the way that it treats things like ad impressions or ad clicks, look for the consistency across those and combine your data in a way that's combining the same object in one system with the same object from another system. Cleanse and normalize data for the greatest accuracy. Again, I mentioned how important that is to have accurate calculations of return on investment. Incorporate data governance. This is generally how marketers deal with the privacy issues, is ensuring that data that is sensitive remains sensitive and remains firewalled from use in certain contexts where it's not appropriate to use personal data. And make data actionable through automation and integration. And this may be the most important thing. It's one thing to make this investment to bring all your data together so that somebody can pull up a visualization, take a look at a graph or a chart, or pull something out. That's great, but again, that's not very scalable. You want to have understanding. You want your end users to be able to look at the data, but probably more important than that is that all of your information systems that action, your algorithms, your tools that allow you to market at scale, that they have access to the data after you've pulled it together and created a combined data set of all your activities. So automation, integration is very, very valuable. And again, that's what at Adobe we've been focusing on for a long time with our partners to create those insights for customers. So that's it. Let me ask everybody if there are questions then about anything that we've gone through.
Could you please give more details in the segmentation part?
Sure. Yeah, so segmentation, there are applications that help you to do segmentation. One of the most popular technologies for that is a data management platform. Data management platforms have evolved as a tool for people to use, particularly to create segmentations. And what you do is, with a DMP, you've got a lot of different data sources. There's data sources, a lot of them are third party, a lot of them are first party. All that data comes into the data management platform and is available to use in segmentation as traits, as attributes, as events. And you create segments in your DMP by creating a set of parameters. So if I, for example, want everybody that has been shown a particular ad or everyone that's been on a particular page. Say I want to take everybody on adobe.com that has visited my Adobe Illustrator page. I can create a segment by saying, take that parameter, this, every profile that has visited this page, and you can combine those. You can make them additive or intersecting. You can use whatever combination of traits is available to either include or exclude each profile from the segment. And then once you do that, so you're always, in your data management platform, you're always organizing these segments. You might have oftentimes hundreds of them, possibly even thousands. It becomes unruly at some point, but from those segments then, your data management platform is connected to targeting systems. So we have some of our own targeting systems that target over email or display advertising or experiences on site or in mobile apps or any context where I might interact with a consumer. And we integrate with the entire industry, so different products that aren't even Adobe products, our data management platform will connect to. There's sort of a data in, traits in, and a targeting out side of this technology. And inside of it is where you're doing all of your profiling, deciding what your audiences look like, what characteristics you want for them. And then you also get reporting and information back on each of those segments. As you're delivering ad campaigns, you can see how effective you've been targeting each one of those audiences with your messages, so you can continually improve. You might change the segment a little bit, modify what criteria is used to create a segment. And that's really what makes it effective. Yeah, machine learning technology is used oftentimes through each of the targeting platforms. So machine learning can either go into the targeting side or into identifying which audiences you want. Machine learning isn't used very often yet to create the segments, but machine learning is oftentimes used to decide what is the best experience or creative to deliver an audience. So once I've built an audience, I might have a dozen different ad creatives or experience creatives that I run, and I'll usually test those. I'll run samples of each one, see what performs the best, and the algorithms will sort of automatically start to run more of the content that's effective to each one of those audience segments.
So maybe one last question.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the cross-device identification of the consumers?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a big issue right now in the industry is cross-device identification. So when somebody has these 10 or more different devices sometimes that they're using, how do I know when it's the same person across those devices? So there are different ways. Different companies have different solutions to that. Some of the most notable are companies that own or have a presence across many devices. Companies like Google, where Google has their own platform for mobile, the Android device. Plus, they own lots of search media and their search properties, and they have a view of the consumer that spans across a lot of different devices. Those kinds of companies, Google, Facebook, they identify a cross-device using login. So when you log into your Facebook account, and Facebook always wants you to be logged in on every device you're using. They want you to log in. In fact, you'll see this more and more from every company that delivers any kind of service now over the web. They want you logged in so that they know it's you across different devices. And you see companies like Netflix are breaking down what used to be family-level accounts or group accounts that multiple people would use. They're trying to break it down into individual consumer identities. Microsoft has done this with Windows 10, for example. You see very strongly, they're trying to push you into these different profiles that identify the person, not a group of people. So it's that login across different devices that allows companies to identify when it's the same person. Outside of Facebook and Google, other companies are doing this. Adobe is working on a solution for this as well, using different data sources. Companies have what they oftentimes call identity graphs. Identity graphs can use one of two different data types. They can use what are called deterministic signals. So if somebody logs in on multiple devices, then you can say it's the same person. There's also a lot of data sources out there that are considered probabilistic, and they just sort of use machine learning, use algorithms to estimate when it's probably the same person on different devices. So a combination of deterministic and probabilistic signals can be used to take those profiles and deduplicate them and say, hey, this is the same person across multiple different devices. But it's a big issue because marketers really get a better sense of the consumer if they can do that cross-device deduplication.